More BLM riots after a police-involved shooting in Wisconsin. Get ready for the RNC this week, my friends. Plus, is CNN for or against convalescent plasma to work? And Garden Gate with Melania is a thing. Welcome, everybody, to the Buck Sexton Show. I trust you had a restful and hopefully joyful weekend, or at least able to get away from some of the craziness of it. I cannot believe we're closing in on Labor Day, and this year, depending on the moment you ask me, feels like it's flying by or is interminable. But certainly the election is approaching very, very quickly. As soon as I saw the first few tweets about it over the weekend, I tried to log off a bit. I try not to be somebody who's just constantly in the conservative media matrix. But I did take some time to just catch up a bit yesterday, and I saw the initial round of news reports on what had happened in Wisconsin. Now, I've been telling you for many weeks now, just wait until there's another police-involved shooting like what we've seen before that has led to riots. And this time around, it could be even more extreme, because the politics of this are just concentrated right now. There are polls that are showing a very close race between Trump and Biden. And here's what I'm quite confident in. If Biden doesn't have an enormous lead right now, the Democrats should be very concerned. You'd say, Buck, wait a second. Trump is the incumbent. Shouldn't he be? No. Given what we've gone through this year and what the troubles that the economy has been through, and just the fear and the change in our lives and on all the lost lives from COVID-19, the incumbent right now should be in the weakest position he could ever be in during the whole 4 years of Trump's presidency. But it's already looking like this is going to be a tight race. And I'm a firm believer in, when you look at COVID and the economy, we are going to be bouncing back. They're going to have to lessen their grip. They can't continue the lockdowns forever. It's becoming untenable for them, much more slowly than I would like. And I'm very surprised and quite honestly disappointed that so many people just go along with this nonsense. So many people have said, yeah, sure, I'll do whatever the government tells me to do here, after they've been wrong and wrong and wrong again. But they're losing their ability to tell you to sit down, shut up, and do what we say, peasant. It's not quite what it used to be. They're losing their grip on your day-to-day lives, and with that, there'll be more optimism, prosperity, more of a return of our individual freedoms, which is going to result in, I believe, a very resounding victory if we get there for Donald Trump. So anything that can prevent that, anything that the left sees as destructive and damaging, anything that can be a point to bring us all down, right? To make us all feel like things are only getting worse. That's what the Democrats are going to try. These are Democrats. They're Biden voters once again, rampaging through the streets, lighting things on fire. And it's not even just in Kenosha, Wisconsin. There are other places where this is happening. But let's start with this. What is the circumstance of this latest police-involved shooting that has now led to a whole series of riots, looting, mayhem on the streets? Well, you had police called to a domestic dispute. Anybody who knows anything about law enforcement, which I say that because it makes sure that we exclude 99% of our news media. News media doesn't know anything about the law or law enforcement. Overwhelmingly, they're just concerned with the retweets from the libs and the hairspray and how they look on camera. That's what 99% of TV journalists are really thinking about all the time. They don't know anything about law enforcement. They don't know anything about what it's really like. And, you'd think maybe they could do some more ride-alongs and spend some time with law. No, that's all. They don't do any of that. They are firmly, the Democrat Party, the left, which includes, we could say the Democrat Party now is under the left's umbrella, or maybe the left is under the Democrat Party's umbrella. But they are firmly anti-cop. They've decided, they've made this position. They've taken this position that being anti-police is central to their ideology at this moment. Doesn't mean they're going to get rid of all cops, but they want to blame the cops for everything. Blame the cops. Way easier then looking at the deep and longstanding dysfunction in high crime, high poverty, low family unity communities. Far easier to just blame the cops constantly than to look at what's really going on and the Democrat control of these areas and the Democrat policies that perpetuate those same cycles of fatherlessness, poverty, crime. These are Democrat policies that lead into this. But they don't want to have that discussion. It's so much easier to look at what's going on with police and to just point the finger at them. So here is what we know. Police were called to a domestic dispute. And I brought this up just because domestic disputes are, I think, second only to traffic stops for violence against cops. You'd think, why is that? That doesn't seem to make sense, right? Isn't the most dangerous thing a law enforcement officer does to go into a high-risk warrant, as part of the SWAT team or as part of a high-value target operation? Well, they're prepared for it. And yes, those are dangerous when they do no-knock warrants on violent felons. That's obviously dangerous work for law enforcement. But there are far more domestic violence disputes and traffic stops. And there's a tremendous amount of unpredictability in them. They can go bad very quickly. You can see this. There's dash cam footage of a police officer will walk up to a car for a minor traffic stop, and a felon who is in possession of a firearm, instead of just dealing with the speeding ticket, as soon as the cop realizes who he's dealing with, the guy will pull a gun and shoot the officer. It'll just happen in the blink of an eye. That's what cops deal with every day across the country. That's the reality of being in law enforcement. It's the risk they take to not just keep all of us safe, to keep society together, to prevent our society from crumbling at its foundations. Because if it just turns into might makes right and the mob makes the rules, we are in for nothing but violence, misery, despair. We're in a Hobbesian world. Jacob Blake, 29 years old, they will continuously describe him this way because they're going to hit the pressure points on racial division in this country, right? The media knows this is what they're supposed to do. An unarmed black man was shot 7 times by a white cop in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Notice they always will describe the race of the officer if the officer is white. Usually if the officer is not white, if the officer is Filipino, or if the officer is of Puerto Rican or Mexican descent, that'll often be left out. Or maybe the media will do what they did with George Zimmerman and describe him as a white Hispanic or something along those lines, right? Just to make sure they fit things into the narrative. So Jacob Blake, who was unarmed, was shot 7 times. My understanding as we go to air right now is that he's in critical condition, but he is alive. And that's an important component of this too. Remember, this is not a fatality yet. My understanding is he's in critical but stable condition right now. So this is in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Police were responding to a domestic incident at a home in the area. We don't know much more about the details of this. And the video shows Blake walking toward an SUV. That we've all seen this video now. Blake is walking toward an SUV. Police already have their firearms drawn. Right? They already have their firearms drawn, and they are saying, stop, stop, stop. And the witnesses are saying that Blake was trying to break up an argument between women in a home nearby. That remains to be verified. That's what some witnesses on the scene have said. So in the video, you see Blake go into the car and he reaches for something with police telling him to stop all along the way in the video. He is reaching for something on the driver's side of the vehicle. I also read that they had tried to stop him with a taser, although I want to make sure that fact, because look, there's a lot. This is what ends up happening. We are asked to do all kinds of analysis. We're asked to do all kinds of assessments, and before we even get the facts in. Video shows Wisconsin police, according to the Washington Post, shooting a black man multiple times, trying to break up a fight, and that police first attempted to taser him. Okay, friends, if the cops have already tried to taser you, They have their weapons drawn. So I just want to make sure we confirm that fact. The Washington Post is reporting it, so trust me, if they could, they would avoid that fact. They've already used less than lethal, because I kept seeing this, people saying, why didn't they do something else? Why didn't they do something else? If the cops have already resorted to tasering you, you are now moving along the force escalation procedures if you refuse to obey, if you refuse commands. And I understand the left has the Democrats have completely lost their minds on this. There is a mass moral panic among libs where they're now saying, well, if cops have to get shot so that we avoid having, a thrice convicted felon getting shot for clearly posing a threat to officers, right? Or that a cop can get shot because he doesn't want to get first tasered with his own taser and then be completely helpless and hope that the guy who's already tasered a law enforcement officer doesn't take his weapon and kill him right there. If I had a gun on me and someone tried to use a less than lethal on me and I'm the cops and they are a suspect, I would defend myself as though that weapon is now in play, which means I would be willing to use lethal force. Otherwise, what about a brick to the head? Turns out a Kenosha, Wisconsin police officer on video got hit with a brick to the head. Fortunately, there were other officers around to take action, but knocked out completely cold, totally cold, right there. By the way, you could kill somebody with that. You hit someone in the head with a brick, they could die. Oh, but they're BLM protesters. Well, they're not protesters. They're BLM rioters, criminals, thugs. That's what's going on in Wisconsin right now. Let's be very clear about this. The media is going to do this we need to have another national. There's no national conversation that needs to be had about how bad the cops are. Maybe we should have a national conversation about when law enforcement have weapons drawn on you because they are concerned that you are a threat and you refuse in broad daylight to comply and you are reaching into a place where people often keep a firearm. They may shoot you instead of waiting to see if you shoot them first. That would be a national conversation that might actually save lives. And I mean that. No, but instead, you have the media, Hollywood, NBA players, Democrat politicians. Instead of doing what would be helpful here, which is to tell people in a situation where you're dealing with law enforcement, fight it out later in court. Obey commands. If they have guns drawn on you and you basically say, I don't care, you're not going to shoot me, and you refuse to obey commands, they may end up shooting you. This could happen. And I don't uniformly or every time agree with what cops are doing. I've talked about the Daniel Shaver. I've talked about the shooting in South Carolina. I've talked about different incidents where you've had police, I think, act in a way that was out of line, right? Daniel Shaver was shot by Officer Brailsford on January 18th of 2016. I wrote about this on the Hill. I thought that was just a straight up murder. And there was a police involved shooting in South Carolina. And we all saw it on video, and it was Walter Scott was the individual. We all saw it. That also to me looked like, manslaughter, but yes, that was a homicide, an illegal murder of a human being. A guy was running away, did not pose any threat based on what we could see, didn't turn around to engage, wasn't attacking the officer. You can't shoot a guy in the back. So that was Walter Scott, unarmed black man. So it does happen, but it doesn't happen frequently enough for the media's liking. And the Shaver video, the Daniel Shaver video, the guy is begging for his life, groveling on the ground, and two officers have long guns drawn on him, and one of the officers just shoots him a whole bunch of times in the ground. It's the most horrific thing I think I've seen in video in a very long time. So is the Walter Scott video. It does happen. But what we're seeing in Kenosha, Wisconsin, we first of all, we need more facts. I want to know, are they going to wait? Are they going to wait to tell us, was there a weapon? Was there a firearm in the car? Wouldn't that be one of the single most important facts to get out right away? Just like, wouldn't it be very important to know that in the case of George Floyd, he was saying, I can't breathe for about 7 to 8 minutes before anyone put any force or pressure anywhere on his body. George Floyd was saying he couldn't breathe because he was supposed to sit in a car because he said that he was having he has claustrophobia or is having a panic attack. So doesn't that factor into the heartlessness that seemed to be the case on the video of an officer putting a knee on his back or on his neck and him saying, I can't breathe? Yes, maybe that officer was using excessive force, but it's certainly relevant that the same guy was saying he couldn't breathe because he had to sit in a car. But they kept that video from you. Okay. What are we going to see here? Was there a weapon in the car? If there's a weapon in the car and this guy is going, I can't imagine what he thinks he's doing here. What is the thought process for Jacob Blake as he has multiple police, broad daylight, guns drawn at him saying, stop, stop, stop. And he keeps going around. He's reaching into his car. What could he possibly be doing that, one, he couldn't stop and say to the officers, hold on a second, guys, I've got my ID I've got to show. I mean, what is he doing? No, let's suspend all of those questions right now and just look at a video. Unarmed black man shot. Now let's riot. Now let's loot. Let's burn down car dealerships. There's video of it everywhere. Let's throw rocks and bricks at cops. This is barbarism. This is anarchy. And the good people in this country, the good people who want law and order, who want safety and civility and decency, people of all races, creeds, and colors, 99.9% of the actual American people want to be safe, don't want to see cops hit with bricks in the face. But it only takes, a few hundred or a few thousand here or there who feel like the Democrat Party has given them license for exactly what we are seeing here. Get ready for it. They're going to lie to you, they're going to destroy, and they're going to look at you in the face and say, what are you going to do about it? I hope America remembers that when we are all voting in a matter of weeks. What does COVID-19 have to do with losing your home? The FBI has reported that cybercrime is up 75% since the COVID-19 virus struck. You need to be aware of one kind of theft that's on the rise that can be devastating to you, your family, your finances. Home title theft. You see, home title theft is a cybercrime. Cybercriminals find your home's title online, then they forge your signature on a quitclaim deed and refile as the new owner of your home, and you're off the title. They destroy you by taking out loans against your home. They steal the cash, and then they stick you with the payments. You may not know until you get the late payment or a foreclosure notice. Home Title Lock protects your home's legal title. Your home is your most valuable asset, your safe haven. Take action today. First things first, go to HomeTitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim. Then use code BUCK for 30 free days of protection. That's code BUCK at HomeTitleLock.com. HomeTitleLock.com. Use promo code BUCK. So while cops are being hit with bricks in the face, while car dealerships and other businesses are being burned down, while stores are being looted in Wisconsin, Antifa are running wild over the weekend in Denver as well. I saw that. So this is a widespread phenomenon of left-wing Democrat-backed insanity. Well, all that's happening. What do the Democrats actually say about this? I want everyone to pay very close attention. Are they outraged by the businesses being burned down? What does the car dealer in Kenosha, Wisconsin have to do with a guy getting shot? Why should his business be ruined? His employees now without a paycheck? Oh, because Democrats are angry? Oh, okay. No, not okay.
President Trump says that you want to defund the police. Do you?
No, I don't. By the way, he proposes cutting $500 million out of local police support. Look, what the police need is first of all, there has to be national standards that in fact apply to every police department in the country. And that's what we're going to do. I don't want to defund police departments. I think they need more help. They need more assistance. And we have to make it clear that this is about protecting neighborhoods, protecting people, everybody across the board. So the only guy that actually put in a bill to actually defund the police is Donald Trump.
This is incoherent blather from Biden, which is not surprising. This is complete bullcrap. Okay, first of all, let's see the way that the Democrat ticket handled this issue this week. See the way they try to pretend. Well, we're not saying we're against the police. We're just saying we're kind of anti-cop sometimes whenever it's politically useful. But then when we want soccer moms in Ohio to vote for us, we realize that we sound like a bunch of lunatics. So then we have a different tune that we sing. Oh, okay. I'm so glad that has been explained so thoroughly. It's not just Biden who, but before I get to the Kamala, referred to by some of her critics as Cop Kamala because she was not ever law enforcement, but sat in a comfortable air-conditioned office her whole career and decided who would get sent to prison and who wouldn't, and for how long, based on the charges brought. Really rooted in what was most effective for Kamala Harris's political career. That was the distinction. That was what was so meaningful to her. Right? What helps Kamala, not what helps society, what's fair. You know, there's been some research done into whether Kamala was willing to allow people that she thought to be innocent to go to prison. Something I want to dig into, too, because if I bring that to you, I want it to be rock solid. I think there's really almost nothing that comes to mind in the realm of corruption and abuse of power that you'll see from a prosecutor than that. Than knowingly allowing an innocent person to go to prison or knowingly allowing an innocent person to be punished. You should be willing, if you have the power, the power of a prosecutor's office, you should be willing to resign your job. You should be willing to lose your career in prosecution in order to make sure that a person you know is innocent not spend a day in prison, or else you should not take the job. You have no business. You have no moral position to take on it. But now we go back to Biden. He does the usual Democrat answer on law enforcement right now because they can't really speak plainly, right? You ask Trump about cops. What does he say? I like cops. Cops are good. Cops protect us. You ask Democrats about cops, it's, well, there's, Biden's, there's a thing here. And, like the fact that law enforcement, and sometimes, why is this a complicated answer? Law enforcement is absolutely necessary for the functioning of our society. Right? I mean, to talk about defunding cops would be like saying we need to defund the military. Okay, we're just not going to have a military? I'm sure you could get AOC and some of the other idiot leftists out there to say, just like imagine what the country would be like if we didn't have a military. It'd be amazing. Because they're morons. The Democrats elevate morons routinely. That's not new. But now they're trying to elevate them to the top of the ticket. I mean, I'll say this. Obama wasn't as smart as the liberal media pretended he was. Obama's a lot smarter than Joe Biden. Yeah, see, I look at things in a reality-based world. Joe Biden's a moron. Now, his answer about cops is telling because it's, Trump is the one who doesn't really want to put more cops on the street. And then it turns into, we want more training, we want more assistance. Well, what he's really describing is the federalization of law enforcement. And I guess he doesn't have any understanding of police powers being left to the states. And there's a reason for that. But the federalization or the federalizing of law enforcement should be something that Democrats hate because how long ago was it? 3-4 weeks now, maybe, when federal law enforcement, essentially federal police, doing their job to protect a courthouse in Portland, Oregon, were being described as stormtroopers. And people were using comparisons to fascist Nazi Germany for our federal law enforcement officers because Democrats were in one of their constant tantrums and they realized that it looks bad that you got mobs of Biden voters overwhelmingly white Biden voters in Portland who are claiming they care so much about BLM and are part of this Antifa movement when they are, in fact, the brown shirts, if there are any. They're, in fact, the fascists out in the streets. But indeed, the Democrats don't know what the messaging is supposed to be on all of this. Federal cops are good. Federal cops are bad. We want more law enforcement. We want less law enforcement. They can't speak honestly to the American people. So what they're going to do is tell different people different things. When it comes to this election and what the Democrat Party is going to say, they will say whatever they have to on whatever day and whatever time that they think will be effective for that audience. And all of the contradictions, all of the absurdities, all the lies will be covered up by their quisling lackeys in the media. That's what's going to happen. It's already happening. Kamala is asked whether she would like to see more police on the street. Here's what she says. Play 13.
The book that you wrote 10 years ago, Smart on Crime, where you concluded by saying that you wanted to see more police on the street. Do you still feel that way?
Listen, I think that there is no question. First of all, when I wrote that book, Black Lives Matter did not exist. And I give full credit to the brilliance of that movement in terms of what it has done to advance a conversation that needed to happen a long time ago. What Black Lives Matter has done as a movement has been to be a counterforce against a very entrenched status quo around the criminal justice system in America. And that's why I'm so excited about what we can do in terms of a new administration in the White House that is about taking on these issues in a way that makes clear that the American people are ready for it and they want it.
I'm sorry. What was her answer? I mean, there's a lot of words. There's a lot of stuff she's saying. A counterforce to the status quo. BLM has burned down neighborhoods, hundreds of businesses across the country, created tens of millions, perhaps now into the hundreds of millions of dollars of damage, murdered. People have died because of BLM riots. What has it done that has made things better? Are things better in Chicago because of BLM right now? Are things better in Kenosha, Wisconsin right now because of BLM? Are they better in Atlanta? Are they better in New York, Portland, Seattle, Denver? Find me a place where relations between the minority community and the police are improved, where overall public safety, including for predominantly minority areas, is better. Find me one place. Oh, ban carotid holds and ban chokeholds. They used a taser on this guy in Kenosha, and it didn't stop him. What are they allowed to? Do you want to see cops start using strikes instead of holds? Do they not understand the reason that there are holds, that there are pressure holds that are used is so you don't have to do damage. You don't have to do striking damage to people, which those of you out there, I know there's a lot of military and law enforcement listens to this show. You know, if you can hold somebody and restrain them, that's uncomfortable for them, but you're not going to usually crack a rib or break a nose or shatter a kneecap. So cops, we don't want them using their guns when someone's trying to wrestle them, take them to the ground. We don't want them just going for their gun. But now we're telling them what? It's always going to be a boxing match? Just wait until you see the first video of a cop who has to take a swing at somebody, punches an assailant, punches a suspect in the face, and that person goes blind in one eye because they get struck above the temple. I mean, our elites, our media class and politicians have no idea of what life is actually like for law enforcement officers who are dealing with this stuff every day. We have a lot of female law enforcement out there. The fact of the matter, despite what the libs will tell you, is that your average 200-pound, 5'10" male is going to be able to easily physically overpower 9 out of 10 female police officers. Just a fact. People they can yell and say, oh, no, what about Ronda Rousey? I said 9 out of 10. Not 100%, but 9 out of 10. It's true. So what are we leaving them now? Use a taser? Sometimes a taser doesn't work. Now what do you do? Right. This is the society that we live in now, one in which you have the people in charge not allowing those who act in the name of the people to protect all of us to use force appropriately because it doesn't look good on cell phone videos sometimes. That's what we're seeing. Otherwise, it just turns into, with every time somebody says, I'm not getting arrested today, we know that Soros-backed prosecutors aren't going to throw the book at them for assault on a cop. That's going to be resisting arrest. Oh, no, he wasn't really resisting. They'll throw that out. That'll be a minor charge. No one's going to prison for a long time because they wrestled the cop to the ground. So cops can't use any kind of restraint hold that involves the neck. By the way, they make it sound like this is a collegiate wrestling match or something where there's a referee and hold on, no full Nelson, only a half Nelson. You're trying to restrain somebody so that they are not a threat to you or others as a cop. It's your strength against their strength. And I know we want to believe that all of our cops, all they do is work out all the time and do jujitsu training, but that's not reality. But Kamala ultimately knows this. She doesn't care. She doesn't care. That's why she went on this whole thing about, we're going to get rid of chokeholds. Chokeholds aren't going to stop people from shooting people, right? Cops are still going to have to go. In fact, you could argue that by having such strict, now if a cop has to put their arms around someone's head to stop them from reaching in for a gun or grabbing a knife, they're more likely to go for their firearm, right? Well, what else are they going to do? This is all entirely predictable. And the Democrat Party, because of their endless race baiting, because of their endless exploitation of identity politics and the divisions that it creates, they have no interest in backing away from any of this. The fact that the most recent Gallup polling shows over 80% of African Americans want more or the same amount of cops in their neighborhoods. How can that not speak volumes to the media and the Democrat elites? How can that not be everything that they need to know to tell us that, no, we want safer communities, more cops, not less? Their rallying cry is defund police. I believe in listening to your opponents when they tell you what their plans are. That is the Democrat rallying cry of the last 4 months. Defund police. And now they act like, oh, no, it doesn't really mean defund police. In fact, Joe Biden's telling you with a straight face they want to have more funding for police. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was does defund mean more funding? This is what we're up against. A pathetic, emotionally fragile group of frauds known as the Democrat establishment, the DNC, the mainstream media, the activist class, and yes, BLM. This is what we're up against. This could be coming very soon to your city, to your area. As I told you, I was in a small town, New Paltz, New York. There was a BLM protest on Main Street. The Main Street was, a couple of 100 yards long, and that was it. I mean, it's a tiny town. BLM protest there. You think that's not going to come to your neighbor? Now, if it's just a protest, that's fine. But these protests turn into looting and rioting time and time again. But we're told, there's no similarity, there's no comparison, there's no connection whatsoever between any of these things. Well, we're smart enough to know that's a lie. And we know they're lying to us. And we know that it's time the Democrat Party is held to account for all of this.
Over the last week, the Democrats held the darkest and angriest and gloomiest convention in American history. They spent 4 straight days attacking America as racist in a horrible country that must be redeemed. Joe Biden grimly declared a season of American darkness. And yet, look at what we've accomplished until the plague came in. Look at what we've accomplished, and now we're doing it again. The most successful period of time in the history of our country, from every standard. Look what we've accomplished. And now this plague comes in, and look at the way they talk. But look at what's happening, and look at how we're shooting up. We call it a super V. It's no longer a V, it's a super V. And they didn't think that could happen, and they're probably not happy about it. They want to punish America and its citizens instead of holding them high. Where Joe Biden sees American darkness, I see American greatness.
President Trump telling us what I think we've all seen, which is that the Democrat message for America is everything is horrible and it's all Trump's fault. It's not true. Now, if the Democrat Party were an opposition party that I would think was deserving of your respect, they would take the opportunity, because remember, they have many governors, governor of California, governor of New York, huge states in Democrat hands. They have majority in the House. A lot of things the Democrats could do to show leadership and to show a willingness to try to make things better. They don't want to make things better. They just want to talk about how terrible everything is because that benefits them politically. And in fact, they actively make things worse. That's what you have to remember as they talk about the shooting this week. And I think you're going to see a week of looting and rioting, not just in Wisconsin, but probably in a handful of cities, maybe more across America. I hope that's not true. I hope I'm wrong. But didn't I tell you before, we're going to have another shooting and another round of this. And if anything, it's likelier to get much uglier before the election.